Hello, everybody. Welcome to the first episode of likely thousands of Podcastemon, a Crub special podcast where we talk about, you guessed it, podcasts. Wait, Pokemon, the Pokemon anime. Digimon. Why would we talk about Digimon?
There's a lot less of it.
That's for Digivol. I don't have a joke here. Hi, everybody. My name's Kevin, also known as the Golden Bolt. I'm here with my fellow co-crubbers, Chris Mykonos fan.
Hi. Hello. Hi.
And the most famous person in history, famous Twitch streamer, JTart9.
That's me. How's it going, everybody?
Hi, Justin. So what we're doing here, as the name of the podcast clearly implies, is we're talking about and watching through every episode of the Pokemon anime with some exceptions here and there. There was a guide that we found that covered all of the filler episodes that we will mostly be skipping. It was thanks to, I wanted to write this down. There was a Reddit user that went ahead and said, here's all the filler, here's filler that's worth watching, yada, yada, yada. There are over 1,000 episodes of the Pokemon anime at the time of recording. There's a good chance that we decide to skip ahead at points if it gets really dull. But for now, it's a good nostalgia tour up until probably the start of Hoenn for the three of us, I would say.
Somewhere around there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks to like network providers switching and stuff like that, I dropped off a little around the start of Johto. Justin, what about you?
I never was able to watch the show serialized, like in order. The only episodes I was ever able to watch in order is likely going to be our episode 3 of Podcastemon, which is these Cano starters, because they were all on one VHS that I had when I was a kid.
Okay. Yeah,
so everything else was just whatever was on.
Interesting, because when we were watching through, and we'll go over what episodes we're going to be watching in this episode in just a moment, but when we were going through, I realized how many of them did play in like a serialized fashion on, Saturday mornings when I was a kid. How many of them I saw in the same order, and how many I pretty vividly remembered from being like, 3 or 4 or 5. So I was surprised at how much of a nostalgia kick this was. But we hit on our origins with this franchise. We are going to hit on movies at some point way down the road, assuming we continue to do this. But for this episode, we are going through episodes 1 through 5. That takes us from the beginning of Ash's Pokemon journey up through the first gym, up through Brock. And we're going to be probably doing broadly every episode of the podcast, 3 to 6 episodes, give or take, depending on how important they are. Again, we'll let you know when we're skipping filler and whatnot. But what are the general thoughts that you guys had? Justin, I'll go to you first, of the first couple episodes of Pokemon.
They're iconic. They really are. Like that first episode where Ash is attacked by all the Spearow, and then you see Ho-Oh, which is not even a Pokemon until a few years down the line from when this show airs. I think
this those games would have been well in production by the time
they were well in production, but nobody saw anything about Ho-Oh. Yeah. So everyone thought it was Moltres, but then it turns out to be the box legendary for the next game.
Yeah,
and that being in the first episode is just like iconic, straight up. Like people told stories about that, and it was like, that's actually Ho-Oh. That's not a Moltres. That's not anything else. That's Ho-Oh.
Yeah,
because they look at the 3 pictures on the wall in the second episode, and Ash is like, I think I saw that one, and pointing at like Articuno, I think, which I'm like, Ash, do you have eyes? Come on now.
To be fair, they're all really bad hieroglyphs of birds.
That's true.
Chris, what did you think about this first run of episodes here?
I actually watched the first few episodes a lot, maybe like a decade ago, because I just kept going in and out of spells of like, I'm going to watch the Pokemon anime. So I'd go back to the start every single time. So going back to this was like, just kind of hearing the same jokes over and over and being like, right, yes, okay, I do remember every single thing from these episodes. I did have the Ho-Oh bit written down as a note of a stroke of genius. Very good. I think my favorite thing that stuck out to me, and it is like the most obvious small detail they could have done, but opening the entire series on like a drawn rendition of the Game Boy intro cinematic.
And it cuts from the Game Boy intro too. That really, I wrote that down too.
Yep.
Yeah, with like the authentic music and everything going into like making it look so cool and exciting. Also genius, probably the perfect way you could hope to start something like this, right? Very, very good. Generally, though, I forgot how comforting the voice cast for Pokemon is. We'll probably touch on Meowth specifically, because it takes like 30 episodes for Meowth to get to his more tenured for kids voice, I guess you would say, but everything else
started
was
shifting a little bit in the episodes, a couple episodes of the podcast after where we currently are. I watched a little ahead. He starts kind of shifting into that tone a little bit in like episode 12 or 13, for me at least.
Gotcha.
I don't
more
know if they
specifically,
changed
like,
voices, but
yeah, there is a voice actor change.
Okay,
Which
that makes more sense.
We'll touch on, I think, next time, because I had a note written down about episode 6 specifically. But yeah, like very comforting to hear all these voices again. I know for like anyone younger who probably came with Pokemon after the 4Kids voice thing, it might be weird because those next generation of voices were the voices for so much longer that it's probably, for me, what it is for them, right? For just so many more generations. But the 4Kids cast, man, it still just hits. I don't know. There's just still something about it that makes me feel like I'm a kid again, just hearing all the voices. So
yeah,
I'm glad that's still good.
I will say the more I watch anime nowadays, the more I look at this 4Kids cast, and I'm like, man, they really didn't know what they were doing a lot of the times.
Yeah,
but like it adds to the charm of like, I'll talk about like episode 5 where it's like Flint takes off his beard and his hat to show that he's just Brock but older. And then Brock's like, "It's you." And then Flint just says, "That's right, it was me."
It's the actual localization. It's the fact that I'm pretty sure they use the same voice actor for Brock and Flint, and it's just him talking in a slightly more gruff voice.
Yeah,
that was all great. It goes at a very like frenetic pace early on. So I don't have all of the synopses written down here for episodes 1 through 5, but 1 obviously is Ash gets Pikachu. 2 is going through Viridian Forest. 3 is
two is getting to Viridian City, and then the Pokemon Center explodes.
That's right.
Which they just let Ash walk away after the literal Pokemon Center is in in
Yeah, 3 is Viridian City, 4 is Mountain Moon, 5 is Pewter City. I knew there was one in there.
4 is the episode where the samurai is there.
That's the first. Sorry, I'm getting mixed up with next episode of the podcast. 6 is Mount Moon.
6 is Mount Moon.
I'll lampshade because I've also watched ahead to like episode 15 of the anime. So many of the episodes for the start of this series are them just bumbling around in a forest, and even the narrator calls them out on it, that I can completely understand getting any of this in any order.
Yeah.
But one thing that really hit me was, again, like how frenetic the pace was, and also how kinetic the pace was of the animation during the few battles we have in this first few episodes. Like, they only have 19 minutes of episode to work with most of the time, if you exclude the intro and the intro again after the commercial, and then the third intro after the commercial, and so on and so forth, and then all the recaps and the next times. So they only have a little bit of time to get through every episode. And they go through very quickly, but the animation, for as 90s low quality as it can be compared to what we're used to now with really high quality cinematography and choreography with these sorts of anime, I was really impressed. I forgot how high of a standard it held to even this early on. Stuff like, running from the Spearows is a funny example, but the battle in the Viridian City Pokemon Center, where there's 400 Pikachu and you're running through different buildings being chased by Team Rocket. Like, there's a lot of that really lands, and it's not a surprise that this show was a hit, obviously, but you look at it again back now as an adult and you're like, man, they did a really good job setting this up early, even if they do take. with how game logic works to get things from A to B. The most famous one, obviously, is in episode 5, which is that Pikachu defeats an Onix with an electric type move because it got wet, which, that's always, there's another one later on that we'll talk about, I think next episode of the podcast here, that stuck out to me. But that one's always like pointed at as, the anime didn't know what it was doing. I was okay with it getting creative with stuff like that. Especially since Ash just technically doesn't win that one. Like, it's a draw. And Brock's like, no, take it anyway. Like, I like that.
You got it.
Chris, what about, or Justin, what about you? You were saying words.
I was going to say, I think that they actually do a very good job of trying to contextualize if Pokemon actually existed in the world, how would you do this? Because in an actual fight, you're not standing there and waiting for the next person's turn to go. You're continually like executing on your plan.
Yes.
And having that kind of stuff being showcased so early on in the show lets you really like understand, no, they're not going to be going through normal Pokemon battles. It's not like a show like Yu-Gi-Oh, where in Yu-Gi-Oh they are very faithful to the rules of the game.
Mm-hmm.
In
Sometimes.
Pokemon, I mean,
They made it up just as much in that show, honestly.
you got the heart of the cards and all that.
Honestly,
stuff,
this one probably sticks to it more when you look at it overall.
You think so?
Especially the early episodes outside of Chris. You go with Yu-Gi-Oh because I don't know as much about the Yu-Gi-Oh show.
No specific examples, but they were just very willing to be like, oh, well, this card lets me do this thing. And then as a kid, you'd get the card and be like, it doesn't say that anywhere on this card. They just made that up to make the fight work. Great.
Yeah.
And then anytime you'd play Yu-Gi-Oh with another kid, they'd be like, well, in the show it did this. It's like, I don't care. I'm just playing the card game. Ugh.
Yeah. I was going to say,
memories.
I think the first episodes here of Pokemon, up through the next couple episodes of the podcast that we're recording, it stuck out to me because there's stuff like your Pokemon's not high enough level to fight me. You don't even have this move yet because you're not this level. There's a later episode where they're studying at a school, which is an analog for going through the gyms. Like there's an educational route to the Elite Four, which I thought was really neat.
It's really cool.
And they talk about students studying to learn moves at certain levels so that they know what moves their Pokemon knows, which is a thing I pointed out early, which was how does Ash know about all of these moves? He's very clearly an idiot. How does he have all these moves memorized? We don't see him studying ever. Like one little scene of him like with a book would have been like, oh, okay, he knows the moves because of that.
Yeah.
We walk a weird line here where like in the very first few minutes of the first episode, Ash is shown to have his life revolve around wanting to become a Pokemon master, which would maybe make you think he knew more, but then he clearly doesn't. But then sometimes he does, and it's a little all over the place.
They get there eventually.
Yeah.
They get there eventually for sure. I was going to say, you go first.
I was going to say, he doesn't use this verbiage, but he definitely just does Pokemon battles off of vibes.
Yeah.
And he just kind of sees what happens. And I kind of respect that.
I did want to jump to you. While we're talking about Ash in the intro, I do want to throw out one of my notes here, which was that Charmander is in a Cherish Ball in his dream. That is it's a both sides are red in the Pokeball. It's a Cherish Ball.
I didn't even notice.
I wrote it down because I was like, go figure. I don't know if that's what Cherish Balls eventually were based off of when they made them a thing. For those that don't know, in the games, Cherish Balls are essentially exclusively for event Pokemon. You can't catch in a Cherish Ball ever.
And if you can breed out of a Cherish Ball, it turns into a Pokeball for every other Pokemon.
Sure. I didn't know that.
Yeah, like and the newest one is the
I don't care.
Arc,
Chris, what did you think about the Samurai episode? You talked about that earlier.
Oh, the Samurai episode. Let me look. My notes are that there was a Counterpie joke that I felt like I needed financial compensation for. I was kind of cinema sinning this episode a little bit when I was watching it because I'm like, it's weird that this samurai kid is like on the hunt for a kid from Pallet Town, but he doesn't recognize like a Cerulean City gym leader. It's like weird priorities with that.
Well, that's the thing I wanted to ask about, actually, Chris. You would know better than anybody. Do they ever talk about the other two kids from Pallet Town? Like, do you ever fight them on the way to the Elite Four this season? Or the League, rather?
If we do, I do not remember those episodes as a kid. They did not stick out to me, but it's possible.
Because, like, I know that the kid, I'm pretty sure AJ, which we talked about, was the kid with his own gym. I'm pretty sure he shows up later on in, like, Orange Islands or something. Like, you fight him again. Really?
I went to the wiki because I had to be sure. He appears in a flashback later in this season, and that's it.
Okay.
Really?
I phantomed the memory then. Because I thought he came back. Either way.
I feel like he'd be like a perfect like Elite Four. Once you got to the Elite Four, he shows up again. He's like, I got all the badges. It's time to go again.
Yeah.
You know? But
I got to see you at the start of your journey. Now I'm at the end kind of deal. Yeah.
Yeah.
That made sense. But
weird that they went samurai very early on because you only fight bug kids in the first part of Pokemon. So I would.
Meanwhile, he still has the net.
I would have loved to have fought a kid in the original Pokemon games that was just Samurai Jason or something like that. And he just throws out a Caterpie, and then there's a Harden battle because there's a battle that exists that I adore in this first run of episodes.
This is the meme episode. This is the one
where it's just two Metapods using Harden back and forth forever. And I did that in a recent. I was playing Pokemon recently, and I did that just to have footage of me doing a Harden battle. And I was like, "Oh shit! I forgot that was a real thing that they did."
Yep.
That's one of those things where it's like you can tell that they were looking at the game logic, and I think how kids were playing it, because I remember having plenty of fights like that in Pokemon as a kid before I knew better, right? Like that was just kind of a shared experience between a lot of people. And I think that's impressive, because like for as much as it will just kind of, upend the rules to be a show, I do think they actually, going back to these episodes, took a lot of care to kind of adhere to, the game and the experience of playing it, which impressed me. In the spirit, right? Because in my memory, we have all these memes and stuff about the anime nowadays, and it was kind of form what your memories actually were. But going back and seeing it for myself, I'm like, you know what? No, this is actually more of a respectful adaptation than I remembered in that way, which is really cool to see.
And that jumps me to another one, which is the last note I had for this run of episodes related to game logic, which was that in the Pokedex, when they talk about Butterfree, when Ash's Metapod evolves into Butterfree, which is the span of 3 episodes, he catches that thing and it's already fully evolved, true to the games. But in the anime Pokedex, it says that Metapod after 7 days becomes a Butterfree. And I like that that's there, because I would have, it would really suck as a video game thing. But I'd love for there to be a piece of Pokemon media in game form that did make you, just deal with a Metapod for a week. It would suck because it's a bug type, but,
It does sound like something you'd get nowadays for an evolution. It's like you have to wait 7 real-world days,
Yeah.
You'd also probably be done with the game by the time it's a Butterfree.
Yeah, honestly. With how long a lot of people take to play these games, I don't know.
It's possible.
Like most players are kids. They wouldn't have it in their party long enough, probably is the catch. That's when you just do a mouse hold where it just evolves anyway. Anyway, one other thing I wrote down, this is the last of my notes completely outside of what we've hit on already. I love how many lower key jokes there are in this run of episodes, like where it's not even necessarily a joke, like you said with Brock and his dad. In the episode in Viridian City, there's the passive aggressiveness between police officer
Jenny.
What's Jenny and Joy, Jenny and Nurse Joy. There's just the hey, we have a drive-through, and there's like a really quick bit where it's just, oh wait, I left my car in the lobby, and then it's like, yeah, next time use the parking lot. But they're both really smiling at each other and passive aggressive, and I'm like, okay, that's the stuff for parents. That's beautiful. Like, again, with how quick they have to keep the pace, I love how much they just punch through dumb jokes like that.
Yeah. No, you could tell that like they knew they couldn't waste any time. Because again, 19-minute runtime with commercials. You got to keep people interested to get past the commercial portion. And I think they did a very good job of that. I'm trying to put my brain back into when this was first airing, and just seeing Pokemon doing the things that they're doing in the show would have blown my goddamn mind, which it probably did when I was a kid.
I do feel for the kids that like got Pokemon Yellow after the anime started, because they would have tried to use Pikachu on Onyx.
On Onyx, it just wouldn't have worked. I think,
and it's like
Onyx is dual type, right? It's Grock and Ground.
Yeah,
it just straight up doesn't work.
Yeah, like it will not. It will never work.
Yeah,
which is why I think in Let's Go they gave Pikachu a water type move early, right?
They got a move called Splashy Splash.
Yeah, I know that they gave something. I was looking at those moves recently. Yeah. But
that's something anyway about the gym note, though, I found interesting, because it's like, yeah, that wouldn't work in the games, but, looking back, I'm kind of like, man, what if you could do like environmental stuff in the games like that to give yourself an advantage? If you are that dumb kid who didn't go catch a Nidoran to teach it double kick, or you didn't go catch a Minky in yellow version, right? Like, what if there were little tricks like that you could pull? Will never happen, but it was neat.
There's nothing in the games for Yellow that tells you go catch a Mankey. Like you just have to know that it's there on that side path and hope you run into one on the 20% chance it shows up.
Yeah, because
like whatever.
You wouldn't go that way anyway because it's the Pokemon League. So a lot of the times when I played the game, I never went to the left.
Oh, so you never fought Blue?
I didn't figure that out until I was in like middle school, high school.
Wow, interesting. That's
wow. Okay.
Because why would I go there? That's the end of the game.
Well, there's a guy blocking your path the first time, so you're like, oh, I'll go left first.
Yeah,
like, there's
but
a
the
lot
guy's
of stuff
blocking up.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, so
like he's blocking the path. That's fair. If you just stumbled over there before you went left first, because it's supposed to be you go talk to that guy, realize you can't go anywhere, then you'd be like, oh well, I can go here, and that's when you would fight. Because a lot of people highly over-leveled Blue.
Yeah, because a lot of people forget that you're supposed to like go to the mart and give them the parcel.
Yeah.
because that's how you unlock the top part.
Why was that not an episode in the show? I wanted Ash to go back. Be like, yeah. Oh, what do you mean Pikachu almost died? Wow, that sucks.
By the way, how did you build the Pokemon Center that fast? It's already rebuilt. I left it in literal ruins. I wrote a note about that too. I was like, why'd they let Ash leave? Because they were going to arrest him for something completely different. And then
he showed his Pokedex.
And then he explodes the Pokemon Center, leaves it in rubble, and they say, you're good to go. Go over to Pewter City.
He stopped Team Rocket. That's fine. He showed his ID, and he was like, hey, I'm a Pokemon trainer. And they're like, okay, cool. You didn't steal the Pokemon. He defends it from Team Rocket and murders thousands of Pokemon probably. And then he leaves. That's normal. That's how it is. Viridian City's gym leader is literally a mobster. Like, what do you want?
That's
that
true.
Whole initial counter messed me up, man. Like, she's standing there with Ash's Pikachu like dying in his arm. He's like, oh, that's unfortunate what happened to that Pikachu there. Anyway, how do I know you didn't steal it? And she's just like stalling for time effectively, it felt like. I'm like, it's dying. Just walk with him to the Pokemon Center. Like, keep your eye on him. I don't know. Be a cop. Well, don't be a cop, but you know what I mean.
I don't know.
Series would have ended a lot sooner if she were a cop.
True.
But anyway, so we ran through the Viridian City episode. We ran through the start, which is just kind of, if you haven't seen the first episode of Pokemon, I don't know what to tell you. It's just one of those. Yeah, why are you here?
It's iconic. Other than that,
it might be Pokemon Day if you're watching this on the YouTube feed or wherever.
True.
But we hit on that one. We hit a little bit on Viridian Forest, which was mostly just that one bug samurai kid. And also Misty hating bugs. They made me feel bad for Caterpie.
That episode was like the most nothing episode of the first 5.
It was, but Caterpie getting bullied, man, that hurt my feelings.
I actually wrote down that I really liked that this episode kind of gave character to Pokemon you would never ever think about beyond like an hour of in-game time, right?
Yeah.
And actually made you feel something for, because like for a while for me Caterpie has just been that thing I use for 3 minutes and then don't think about, but thanks to this episode I was like, oh, it does have feelings. It wants to impress Misty. I did just watch it and Pikachu scream at each other for a literal minute of episode time with no subtitles. That's fine, don't worry about it. And I don't know, I was like, man, I'm kind of on Caterpie's side. We'll touch in the next episode on how that goes overall. That confused me, but for now, it's great. Another thing, that's episode 3. I thought it was interesting that Team Rocket introduced double battles, and then they were told that it's illegal by the Pokemon League sanction.
It would have been at this point, At this point, it would have been illegal because it wasn't until Gen 3. Or maybe Gen 2.
No, Gen 3.
Were there any in... Yeah, there weren't any in Johto.
There wasn't any in Johto.
So it makes sense that by this point in the show run, they're like, there are no double battles. Like, you can only have 6 Pokemon. There's that kid, we'll talk about this next episode, but there's the kid with the Charmander who has like 45 Pokeballs on him that are all caught Pokemon. But then Ash catches a Pokemon and it immediately gets transferred. Like, is he working outside of the system where he has them on his person so he doesn't have a Pokedex? Like, they're bootleg Pokeballs? Like, it's a whole thing that, it's fascinating when you think about it.
That's the Pokemon equivalent of leaving your money under the mattress because you don't want to go to a bank.
Yeah. I was going to say with the Caterpie thing, with the pantomiming you mentioned, they do actually use that pretty quickly, again, in the next episode of the podcast, where Pikachu starts pantomiming to Ash, and Ash is like, oh, I know what you're saying. Like, we now communicate. And I liked that they kind of set that up a little bit so that, Pikachu does have to speak sometimes.
It's not a mute party member. They try and make Pikachu more of a character than an actual Pokemon, which I kind of respect because they obviously wanted to have the screen time of being out of the ball all the time. There's a lot of situations where I'm just like, bro, it's a Pokemon still. You can use Pikachu in the battle. And he's like, no, I'm going to use Caterpie against the bird.
Well, he's got to level them up. That makes sense.
I mean, I guess, but it's a Caterpie against a bird.
He's Switch training, bro. Don't worry about it.
I mean, again, Ash is supposedly a huge Pokemon fan, but he's like those Pokemon fans that comment on YouTube videos that are like, "Oh, this, like, why aren't you using this one?" And they just don't know how the system works at all. Like, he's a fan, but he doesn't know how the sport works.
He's like a Persona fan. He loved to play it. He loved to play it for the first time.
God. Do we have any final thoughts on this episode of the podcast? Or these 5 episodes of the show?
I'm honestly happy to be watching it, and I'm excited to see where it goes in the future. Like I said, the 3 episodes that are like ingrained in my brain are the Kanto starters. Yeah. So everything other than that, I'm just like, oh yeah, there was an episode where they thought Clefairy was that, and that. Oh yeah, there was an episode where there's a random samurai in the middle of Viridian Forest who got a pincer.
Yeah, that was
I
a
don't know
little.
how I wasn't going to question that
You
one.
can't find those in Viridian Forest, but you know what? It is what it is.
Yeah.
It broke its horns on poor Metapod. That was kind of like a to watch.
Yeah. It's like, oh man.
Had a
They grow back,
question
it seems. Yes.
come up during the Pure City episode while Flint is running around basically leaking the family group chat to Ash, who didn't ask. I'm like, does he do this with every challenger? This is kind of weird.
Only two people stand on his rocks.
Yeah, he sets him up on the watermill wheel, right? And it's somehow charging Pikachu up, and Ash is walking on it like, if I can deal with this, you can too, Pikachu. Well, Pikachu's getting overloaded with voltage, and Ash is just walking. And I was just wondering, like, how much of Pikachu's power going forward is thanks to this? Like, is Flint the catalyst for Pikachu's prominence in this series?
If you attached, like, alligator clamps to my nipples and electrocuted me, I wouldn't get more powerful. I think that I would just be tortured for a little bit and then be angry.
I think you'd come out of it stronger and better with more character.
Let's find out.
Then
next
I can
time on
trade
the
you to
podcast.
Justin to evolve you.
So I guess that's where we'll call it for today's episode of the podcast. Like I mentioned, this is a podcast feature that's going to be predominantly on the Crub Patreon. So if you go to patreon.com/Crub, we already have a couple more episodes of this currently released. If you're watching this on the YouTube feed or on the podcast feed when this goes public, we've recorded a bunch of these already. So we're really excited to run through this whole series, again, minus filler episodes. We'll tell you guys in advance if you want to watch along which episodes we're skipping generally. So next episode of the podcast, we're talking through episodes 6 through 9 to get us up through the Cerulean City Gym. So if you want to join us on that journey before that next episode when you check it out, feel free to do so via your totally legal streaming service of choice. Yeah.
They're easy to find.
They're very easy to find.
Yeah, you can definitely find them. We found them totally legally. Yeah, thanks, Nintendo. We didn't have an outro. Bye.